Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Musician's Mentor podcast. As usual, I am your host, Travis Mark, and today I thought it would be super cool to speak to fellow bandmates, band leader, business owner, function band extraordinaire, Mr. Andrew Autin. Andrew currently leads the Mojeaux band that I play in. He also plays in Phase 5 and the Generators, and has rock Show Nola, which is one of the state's leading tribute bands. I thought it would be cool to get his perspective on running function bands and trying to get work within that kind of area. He also owns a great restaurant called the Rock and Roll Kitchen out in Metairie. So if you're ever down in Louisiana, make sure you check that out. And as usual, before I jump straight into this interview, if you're enjoying these episodes and the content that I'm putting out, please follow us on social media and do us a favor and leave us a rating or review. That's it for now. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you the one, the only, Andrew Autin. Andrew, it's Travis from the Musician's Mentor podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be fun because you and I have obviously spent a bit of time together with gigs and stuff like that, and just talking shit about music in general. Whereas, sometimes I'm having to like almost talk to strangers, which is great. I'm fine with that too. But this will be cool because we can dissect a little and more patiently than what we have in these little spaces at gigs, which is super cool. I'm going to tell the world about you when the podcast comes out. I'll do an intro, I'll do an outro, I'll link all of Mojeaux and Rock Show Nola and Phase 5 and the Generators and all of those things into the show notes so people will know where to find you. But what I do, I have two things that I do in every podcast, the start and the end. And the start is always awkward because instead of me building you up to our listeners, I try and get you to do a brief introduction on yourself so that anybody listening who's maybe never heard of Andrew Autin before possibly has a better idea of where your mindset's coming from, where you're at, etc., etc. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us who Andrew Autin is.
Well, I am a guitar player from New Orleans or Metairie, Louisiana. New Orleans is probably the closest place that most people recognize. But I've been playing guitar since I was 13. I love Kiss. Kiss was like the reason why I think I got into music. And I think we've talked about this a lot of times. And, you could talk 2 hours and all day about Kiss.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I wanted to be in a band and play music and stuff. So, I've been playing guitar since 13. I was 13 and started playing keyboard when I was like 20 because my mom was like, hey, nobody's just going to need just a guitar player. You want to make yourself as valuable as you can. So try to play something else. So I love keyboard and I love sounds and all that kind of stuff. So I took up playing keys, and here I am, man. I've been playing in bands ever since, Once I got out of high school, I just went full force music, never did anything, just practiced all night, all day,
Which is incredible, and you can hear it in your playing. I mean, you're absolutely incredible. I'm not trying to blow smoke. And again, I'll link some stuff. People will see some video footage. But I want to kind of back up a little. So I know that you're a massive Kiss fan. I'm a massive Kiss fan. I seem to somehow always drag Kiss into a lot of these conversations. People probably be like, what the hell, But is there a distinct point or a pinpoint that you can kind of remember where you thought, I want to start learning guitar? And I know that we've had some discussions where your parents thought, music could be a very unsecure vocation, which I totally understand that. But could you maybe sort of talk to me a little bit about the concerns your parents had, and then tell me and the listeners about the fact that you didn't land up actually going full force into music when you were studying, because I think that's super interesting. And then now you're like one of the busiest dudes in Louisiana. It's like kind of crazy.
It's just kind of like weird, Like when I was growing up, my parents always thought, well, music's a hobby. It's not like your main thing. Because my dad was a salesman for Old Spice, and my mom, she never worked. She stayed home with the kids and stuff. So my dad was always like, you can't do music for a living. No way. That's your hobby. You got to have that on the side. You need to have something else. And that could be possibly smart, because in this day and age, you have to be in 4 or 5 bands just to make a living playing music. It's very hard to just do one band.
Yeah.
So, but, I got started probably, I love like around 1976 is when I first got my love for Kiss because just the outfits and the show and just Gene Simmons' makeup and just being a little kid looking up to those guys, it was like, wow. I mean, it's been said a million times. They're like superheroes,
Yeah.
And unless you lived that time, nobody will know what it was like. It's like just magic. I don't know. It's hard to explain to people, but Kiss just, dude, they freaking did something to me in 76, dude. Just, I've never looked back. They've been my favorite band, just, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So, I was 5 years old then. So now I didn't start playing guitar until I was like 13. And it wasn't until I think my friend that lived around the corner had a guitar. And like I'd go by his house and by his house a lot and a lot because I wanted to hear him play like all this Jakey Lee stuff. And I think Bark at the Moon was the thing that like just blew my mind, just the solo. And, he probably didn't even play it that well, but to me, it was incredible. Like I want to do that, and his guitar was cool. He had a Floyd Rose. It was an old school Kramer, and like I was just a little kid, in school, and I was just like, wow, I played on a tennis racket. That was my first guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
Mirror and just have a tennis racket, which is kind of stupid, but I'd go to my friend's house every day and then he'd let me play it and show me things. And eventually I got my first guitar and I mean, that's where it started, and then I saved up my own money and got my own Jackson guitar, which was like $1,400, but it was a really good Jackson guitar. It was a nice one. And then that's where I stayed for a while, practicing on that thing through high school, after high school. Unfortunately, I sold that guitar. I wish I didn't, but I recreated the paint job. That's my black and white one.
Yeah, that's an awesome guitar.
So yeah, but that's basically how it started. I love Steve Vai. I think when that movie Crossroads came out, that kind of like lit the fire under a lot of guitar players. Seeing that dude come out and saw like he was in David Lee Roth's band and in Van Halen and all that stuff. It's just, so much back in the 80s and 70s for a guitar player or a musician just to see all these killer musicians, and the songs, they were great. It's not like today where you don't really hear about anything.
I bring this up with a lot of people. Like we fall under different generations. And sometimes with me, I feel conflicted because I look at how easy it is to access information now, right? And I think to myself, because I know I practiced. Like I was a diligent music student. I wanted to be as good as I possibly could, still do. I mean, I just don't have as much time as I used to, but I really took it serious, right? I was a big believer of the 10,000 hour rule. I was a big believer of like, you had to sleep with your guitar. You had to eat with your guitar around your neck. I saw pictures of Jimi Hendrix frying eggs and he had his guitar around him. And I was like, if you want to be good at your instrument, you got to do that stuff. And, when I look at how easy it is to access information now, I sometimes think to myself, man, if I had the access to that stuff when I was like really trying to learn, I'd be so incredible. That's what I think, right? But then I also kind of get conflicted because I think to myself, it's not really easy to say that because these things have become such distraction devices. And I fall prone to it even having not grown up with one. So how do you feel the access to information has affected how you potentially practice now? And if not, on a completely sort of separate note, tell us, how were you finding the information you were practicing when you were going through these intense practice periods?
Right. Well, I got to say, I think technology has made everyone's attention span worse,
Yeah.
Because you have so many things distracting you now. Back then, there was nothing. No technology. There was no computers. I mean, there was Commodore 64 and Ataris and stuff.
Yeah.
No like backing tracks and YouTube and anything that you can go grab and find, where you could get the stem tracks and you can get the things by themselves and you can learn and hear what they're really doing. Like, no, there was none of that. It was cassette tapes and albums. And like, oh my God, my album is turning and my guitar is not in tune with that thing. So now you got to tune your guitar and it's like, that all, I mean, it just was way, I mean, I have to say, what wasn't as easy back then to learn songs. I mean, because you're learning off the cassette off the full mix of the song. And I mean, what you heard is what you heard. And, there might be underlying things going on that you just can't tell, but it definitely, I don't know. It, I think it made everybody lazy, technology these days. And I'm kind of glad that it didn't exist then, because I say that all the time. Like, man, if I had the technology I have now back then, man, I'd be killer. But I don't know, man. I'd probably be lazy. I'd probably get lazy too.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. It's like it really conflicts me. I think about it all the time. Because I still do a bit of teaching, and obviously I do a lot of these interviews, and I couldn't pull up an isolated whatever track from whatever song back in the day. You had to do exactly that. Like, you had to listen to it time and time again. What I've noticed, and maybe it'll be the same for you, but if I have to learn a song in a hurry, not so much drums, but I'm talking guitar here. So if I have to learn a song in a hurry and I don't have the time to actually go and put the song on and learn the arrangement and try and figure it out by ear, if I pull up the chords or the sheet music or the tab, whatever you want to call these things, I can learn it. I can play it on the spot. Great. But I can't remember it the next day. Whereas if I've learned it by ear, and I don't know if that's just the way that I learned, I can remember that song for the rest of my life. But dude, there's something about that reading the tab or the chord situation, which it's great. If that's how you've learned, that's how you've learned. But I, for the life of me, cannot remember that shit. It's crazy.
Right. I know. And I'm not a reader either. So it's like I'm doing everything by ear, which has made my ear a lot stronger, because the more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah.
But like, at least you're not having to learn a Rush song.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, you got 5 minutes. Can you learn this Rush song?
Yeah. Just listen to it in the car on the way to the
Yeah,
gig.
just listen to it. Oh my God, I'd be in trouble.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. So you land up after high school, you land up going to study, and you've told me your major was psychology, correct? Okay, so we don't necessarily have to get into that. I mean, you said that your folks wanted you to have something, to kind of fall back on, which is it's cool, but you've never used it, and in turn you land up finishing university or college or whatever it is, and you land up kind of jumping full time into the music thing. How quickly from finishing your studies to understanding that you could potentially make enough money as a musician and make it your career, how quickly did that transition happen? And what was the moment that you realized that, okay, I can do this, I'm just going to have to hustle in this regard or that regard?
Right. Well, before that, I just wanted to say after high school, I didn't go straight to college. Like, I tried to go make it.
Oh,
Like,
cool.
all my friends were like, dude, we're gonna go to Los Angeles. We're gonna go here and go there. And like, let's just try to make it. So I mean, I was writing songs with my friend and we had some pretty good stuff. Kind of sounded like Firehouse and kind of the stuff back in the 80s, it had that real commercial Bon Jovi-ish kind of flair to it. But I didn't go to college right away. I wanted to try to make it.
Yeah.
But that was about 4 or 5 years that I just didn't do anything but play music and pay money to play music. You didn't get paid back then. You had to like drive to places and open up for bands, and that's what it was. You didn't really make any money.
Did you go to LA or were you trying to do the local scene?
Go to LA, man. That was just too far. I wanted to go to Berkeley and all these kind of schools, but I don't think I really had the mentality and all that back then. I mean, those guys were like, people that went to those schools were already, they understood all this stuff. And I kind of didn't really have the theory thing down yet, because it took me a little while to learn all the key signatures and to know what I was playing. Like, I just wanted to play fast when I was a kid, because that was like the thing, right? The faster you play, dude, you good.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, I could play fast, but I just didn't know what I was playing. So I had to go back and learn everything that I was playing, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just making a bunch of noise, but it was fast.
Yeah.
So I went, after playing in all these bands and not making any money and just seeing like, oh my God, my life is really going nowhere. My mom was like, you really need to get a degree because it's going to help you one day if music don't work out. So I didn't want to go, but I did go. And thank God I went, because I did finish, graduated in 1999 fall. I have a psychology degree and I have a minor in music. So I did take some music theory classes. So that helped me along the way, learning counterpoint and all these kind of real technical things in music. But, so I got out of college and instantly I got asked to be in a working cover band that was playing weddings and casinos and fairs and festivals and things like that. And so I jumped on it. I was like, man, I don't want to work a real job because I was offered a real job at a hospital. And I was like, man, music, hospital. I don't know. Seems kind of a hard decision for me, being that I practiced my whole life in music.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took that job in that band, and that's where I started, man. And I just played guitar and keyboard. I was mainly a keyboard player for that band because they had a guitar player. So I'm glad that's where learning that other thing came in, because having that second instrument got me that gig. And dude, I worked a lot. Like we were playing 3 to 4 or 5 times a week, corporates, weddings, fairs. I mean, it was like incredible. I made a lot of money, met a lot of people, and that led to Mojo. Because I mean, I was seeing that, man, I could do this my own self, because when you work for somebody else, it's just you learn things, and that's what I did. And then we formed Mojo, and then boom, it's been Mojo ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Until the shutdown.
Oh yeah, yeah. The COVID shutdown. Man, I can't wait to stop talking about COVID. It's like it's a common topic in just like every conversation.
Right.
Okay, so we get to this point that you're working. How do your parents feel about it at that point?
Well, they finally started to believe, hey, this is good. I think they were proud of me. They were like always telling everybody, yeah, he's in this band now. So that's how I knew that they were kind of happy about it, because everybody they met and talked to, they were always talking about the bands and this and that. And you got to go see them. And, we play like the Treasure Chest Casino, and older friends would come out and they'd all line dance and stuff. It's just, they started to be believers in, he can actually survive on this.
Cool, man. They saw the light. That's awesome.
And that was and get my parents to like believe it. Because, when you have your parents coming down on you all the time,
Yeah. Something I want to talk about with you a lot, I think a lot, is I often talk to musicians and people who aren't musicians, and there seems to be this belief that there's no money in music unless you're a rock star, like you're in, I don't know, the Rolling Stones or something. And obviously those bands generate millions of dollars, but I'm always trying to kind of educate people in the fact that you can make money in music, whether you're playing in cover bands or function bands, whether you're teaching, doing corporates. I mean, dude, I worked the corporate market before I moved here. I worked that for 7 years with a band, making incredible money. I mean, Mojo makes good money. We're not going to go into figures and stuff for people, but like, I would just like you to kind of talk to people, for the people interested in playing music, who maybe are looking for more than just playing, I don't know, a residency at a bar once a week. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm not trying to kind of cast shade on it. Like, I'm just saying that, like, maybe there's some people out there listening who maybe they feel like they don't want to work on original music. Maybe they love playing other people's songs. They want to start tribute bands. They want to start function bands, cover bands, this and that, this and that. What advice would you potentially try and share with these kinds of people on trying to get their product out there? Or if they don't have the product yet and there's products that are existing that they'd like to try and get involved with, what would you suggest to them as musicians to do to try and get into that sort of line of work?
Okay. Well, I think in order to get to the bigger money gigs, you have to have the chops. So in order to get the chops to get those bigger paying gigs, you have to like go through the trenches just like everybody else, Now, how long you stay in the trenches, that's kind of up to you, Like I think it all starts with bars, right? Because nowadays it seems like a lot of bands are just playing in nightclubs and bars, and then you step up a notch, there's casinos, so that could be another level up. And then you get corporate parties, and then you have fairs and festivals, and then you could have weddings, and then you could have, like the tribute things are doing like big theaters, so like it can go that high, and the money is really well, you got to stick with it, and you got to have the right mindset. A lot of people, they kind of shut themselves off as, I don't want to be in a cover band because I want to play originals. Okay. Well, the way I see that is you're the guy that's actually making my job easier, because that's one less person that is playing cover tunes, and I'm playing cover tunes. So, you can't be like closed-minded, because if you want to make money, I'm sorry, original music these days is very hard, So the cover thing, to me, if you play the right songs to the kind of people with money. You don't want to play to like just, you know, in like these hard bars in the city. I mean, I think that's not a bad thing, but if you want to make the bigger money, you got to play the nicer gigs and you got to get to the corporate level. Or fairs and festivals, they pay good.
It's funny, you mentioned the original thing, and even like I hear sometimes slightly derogatory terms with, and again, I'm stereotyping here, okay? But so I know a lot of original musicians. I know a lot of cover musicians. I don't really care what people play. I'm kind of like at this point where it's like, if you're a musician, you're cool with me, Like I don't care. We all go through a lot of similar struggles to get to certain points. That's something that seems universal across the board. But I've definitely had conversations with people who won't play covers, and they seem to think that playing covers is easy and playing covers is, it's not, there's no challenge. It always makes me laugh because I do both. I play in original bands, I play in cover bands, and they both come with challenges. The challenge that people seem to overlook with covers and functions that I never seem to understand is, in my sort of thinking, it's so much harder to emulate so many different guitarists or so many different musicians. Like we've been referencing Kiss this whole conversation. If you want to play like Ace and you learn 5 or 10 Ace solos, you can start to play like Ace. But if you're in a band that plays one Kiss song and you want to do that genuinely, and then the next song is a Bee Gees song, and you want to do that genuinely, and then the next song's a Michael Jackson song, you have to be a musical chameleon. And I'm not saying you've got to copy everything, note for note, but like, so what are your thoughts on that? Because, I know, again, I met you in a cover kind of environment. And dude, it's like, I don't care what anybody says. It's like, if they see a guy like you play guitar, I'm sure their thinking will be different. But I have that conversation often. Do you ever have these kinds of conversations?
Yeah, all the time. The thing is that what I've realized over time is that the average listener does not have the ear that we have. So it's like, I feel like you can, I don't know how to even put it. Like people hear people and they're like, oh, he's a great guitar player. Then they hear like somebody else say, oh, he's a great guitar player. And it's like, I just feel like the musician like that we have, our ears are like different. I don't know. I feel like we're like aliens or something, It's like you got to wear a lot of different hats when you play in a cover band, like you said, you got to be able to go from rock to dance to oldies. You maybe play a country song, you got to be able to like turn it on all these different styles like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to have those chops. And that's where the chops part comes in that I talked about before, and that involves trying to emulate other styles, trying to improvise, because not all bands play everything like the same way every time. You got to be able to learn to think outside and get out of any situation, play a song and just be able to do your own thing. And because, man, if you're like strictly playing the same thing every night and something happens, but you got to like change it up and you don't know how to improvise and get out of it, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. So true.
Right. But I feel like the average listener, their ear is different than ours. They may not hear things with all the elements and this and that. They just hear like music. They hear a beat and they hear, vocals. And, dude, when I hear a song, dude, I hear everything. Like I hear the keyboards. Like I'm like going, oh, that's a sawtooth. That's a red square. People think I'm an alien. You know, like, what are you talking about?
Are you the type of person that can have music on in the background when you're doing something? Or is it too much of a distraction?
No, when I'm doing something, but if I'm thinking of another song while music's on, I can't think of the song. Like I have trouble thinking of
Me too.
What I'm thinking of a song, but there's a song playing and it's making me thrown off. I don't know. I can't think of it.
Yeah, me too. I've definitely got that problem. And I've noticed over the last few years in general, if music's playing and someone's trying to have a serious conversation with me, it just can't happen, because like my brain's analyzing. And I'm trying to have the conversation, but I'm sure I possibly come across as a bit like on the spectrum with some people sometimes. I'm not. Okay, so let's kind of like switch it on its head here for a second. So with the knowledge you have now and have acquired over the last 20, 30 years, if you were trying to tell somebody who was interested in starting like a Mojeaux type project, a corporate party kind of function band, and they didn't have anywhere to start. They were already playing bars, but they want to do that. What advice would you give them? Like, hypothetically, just to make this an easier example, person A has a band, they are doing the bars, but they don't know how to get to that next level. What would you do if you had to do it all again?
What I would tell someone is go watch bands that are doing it now. Like, go watch these bands that are making a living playing music for a living, you know? So learn the songs that they're learning, you know, see which ones are working, see which ones are not working. I tell that to people all the time. Just go see bands, just go see as many as you can, you know, and watch what they're doing. And that's what I did, you know. There's a lot of bands around in this area that are great, you know. You
Yeah.
go see, learn from each one, you know, things that you should be doing, things that maybe don't work as well, you know. What I tell people, just go see as many bands as you can.
Do you think a band can have a successful career nowadays in that market by just word of mouth once they start getting gigs? Or do you need to have all the typical corporate-y kind of things in place? Do you need the websites? Do you need the business cards? Do you need the banners? Do you need to attend wedding fairs and business fairs and stuff like that? Or is it just a matter of once you're in that market, you stay in that market?
You need to look professional. You know, you need to make people, when they want to book you, go, oh, wow, like, look at that. That looks nice. You know, it's like what, buying a car, you know?
Yeah.
Got to make it look nice and shiny and pretty and, you know, have that shine to it, you know? So, I mean, technically, yeah, you can not advertise and do all these things, but it definitely helps when you have those other things to make you look larger than life. It's all perception, you know?
Yeah.
People perceive of you, you know, like Kiss, they weren't the greatest musicians, but they were perceived to be great because of what they were doing, you know, the stage show and the costumes and all that stuff. But they weren't like the musicians at Dream Theater. I mean, people know that, you know. They were like, they couldn't even tune their instrument.
I love the story of all the empty cabs that were spray painted black to look like they had these stacks and
Right.
stacks. I mean, that is genius. You know, like in
It
a time,
was
like who would
the
have
same
figured that
thing.
out?
I did
You
the
know?
same thing, but you get called out like, dude, that speaker don't ever stick that cab, don't have a speaker in it because it might just
Ah, dude, you got called out? That sucks.
because man, who wants to lug out 4 tracks with real speakers in? Those things are so heavy. But you know, I put speakers in them.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move forward a little. You know, in addition to Mojo and some of the other projects, you also happen to play in one of the largest kind of tributes. Can I call it a tribute act?
That's what it is. Yes, sir.
One of the largest tribute bands in Louisiana, Show Nola. You guys do Styx and Foreigner and Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and all that kind of stuff. Talk to me about the differences between playing in a function band versus a tribute band. And then, if you wouldn't mind, tell me a little bit about how you, well, I suppose it comes down to the group, but how the group chooses the material it chooses to cover in the
Okay.
tribute band.
I would say the difference is between a regular band playing a Journey song and a tribute band playing a Journey song is the details in the song, the vocals, the keyboard sounds, you know, everything's got to be pretty spot on when you're tackling bands like Journey and Def Leppard because there's so many elements that come into play, like the Def Leppard drum sound. You know, you go listen back to Pyromania and Hysteria, there's a distinct drum sound they got going on. So if you don't have that, you're not going to sound much like Def Leppard.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have the harmonies for Journey, you're not going to sound like a Journey band. You know, like you can kind of fake your way through it and be in a regular little band that plays, you know, Journey songs and hey, they played that song, but whatever. But when you go to see a tribute act, people are coming to get blown away.
Yeah.
And all those details, you know, just having the feel, like, I mean, that's the thing. Like Neil Sean is like one of my favorite guitar players in the world because his feel. And I mean, he's got emotion when he plays. I mean, I get goosebumps just listening to him play. You know, Jonathan Cain, his keyboard playing is, I mean, he's incredible. What those guys did, you know, in those songs. So many layers, you know, and you got to try to mimic that. So for a tribute band, it's much different than just a regular bar band playing a Journey song.
Yeah. And
And the guys in the band, like, we each know our role, right? So I'm Neil Sean, when I'm
yeah,
doing the Journey thing, I take all the guitar stuff and I know my vocal. So everybody kind of knows what range they're in. So you got the high part always, you got the middle part always, you got the low part always. You play to your strengths.
yeah.
You're not gonna have the guy with the lowest voice trying to sing the highest on. That won't come out too good. So so yeah, everybody's got their role. And, the keyboards in these songs, like I play keyboard. So that's where learning all that stuff back then with all the sounds and loving the sounds and learning how to make the sounds. And that's where it comes into play for me now because I can replicate all those songs. And if my keyboard player who's really good, not sure how to make this sound, like I'll go make it for him. And we have the same keyboard. So it helps out,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to find your market as a tribute band versus finding your market as a function band?
It's much harder because now there's a lot of tribute bands out there. And what we're coming across now is we'll contact a venue and they're like, well, we just had a Journey tribute band come through here. It's like, oh man, but you never had our Journey band come through there. There is a difference. I've seen, I've watched people and like there's a lot of tribute bands that don't hit all those elements. And I'm like, man, we just need to get in there.
Yeah.
And, we're just keep knocking. Eventually they're going to answer. We'll get in. So,
how important do you think it is for tribute bands to dress like the bands they're paying tribute to?
Well, if you can, it's great. If you're a Led Zeppelin tribute and, if you can do the whole Jimmy Page thing with the black long pants with the whatever he has on there, and if your lead singer has long, blonde, curly hair and can look like, that would be great.
Yeah.
But odds are, most people that are unless you're in a Kiss tribute band and you're trying to dress like them, and sometimes that's even crazy to do because all these people that are in these bands, they don't really look like them at all. But hey, it's just the experience, But if you can look like them, hey, that's a plus.
And what about booking? I know that when it comes to the function band, you do the booking. With the tribute band, do you do the booking or is that Tim?
That's me and Tim. Like we both kind of work hand in hand, So if people contact me, I'll hand it over to Tim. He's more like the guy that kind of handles all those kinds of things.
Okay.
But sometimes they'll come to me and I'll just pass it on,
Yeah.
'Cause that's it.
And something that, I kind of skipped through with all the music stuff and trying to start the bands and all that kind of stuff is, what about learning that aspect of business, like admin stuff, phone calls, emails, invoicing, getting paid, deposits? Any topics you think musicians might want to pay a little bit of attention to instead of just going out there and gigging and hoping for the best? Because I'm sure, I know we've had some conversations, but sometimes people learn some of those lessons the hard way.
Sure. Oh, and I have.
Well, by all means, you can embellish as much as you want.
If there's something that learned the hard way, I've done it all. Like I feel like everything's possibly happened to me that can happen, but I'm still here running it and we're still going strong. And, I just feel like learn as much as you can, as far as contracts and all that, you might want to get a good contract, that has all your little things and stipulations and all that, and try to cover all your bases, because, if something happens to the event you're going to do and they cancel on you, you need to make sure if it's close to the date you were going to play that you still get paid something,
Yeah.
Because you're holding the date for these people, and if they cancel on their accord, then they should owe you something, You need to make sure you have all those things covered in the contract or, So,
do you work out those terms yourself or do you take it to like a legal professional?
Yeah, I had a legal professional do mine.
Okay.
Just to make sure they looked over it, and it was, see if it was right and stuff.
Yeah, and now let me ask you a possible ignorant question here. So going back to the function bands, it could apply to the tribute bands too, but I'm going to go more function-based here. And I'm again going to make up a bit of a hypothetical situation, okay? So you've got your contract in place. I don't know what your cancellation policy is. Let's say it's a 2-week cancellation policy or something, right? And again, I'm being hypothetical here. So 2 weeks come and you haven't heard any sort of cancellation, everything's still good, we're doing the gig kind of situation. And then maybe 10 days before, so they've 4 days over the agreed upon termination cancellation policy, right? And bride or bride's mother phones you up and they're in tears, and it's something to the effect of, some sob story, which, how do you, this again, it might be an ignorant question, how do you stay businesslike in that situation where emotions come into play? That's what I'm trying to ask,
Right. Well, first you try to ask him if it is able to be rescheduled, like if, push it to a later date if it's possible, and if something happens where, oh no, it's just cut off, we're not getting married, this and that. I try to work with them a little bit, but they got to also work with us too, that they got to understand that, we are a business, and I have people that have held this date available, for you. And if you cancel, I got to give my guys something. So just try to work with me, and I try to work with them and make sure everybody's happy. I'm not cold-hearted, and I don't like try to hurt people and stuff. But then again, I don't want to get hurt either. So
of course, yeah,
right. They got to understand. It's happened before, and everything's worked out fine. Come to an agreement,
Yeah, make a win-win situation, right?
It's taking it to a legal aspect. You're going to have to pay all kind of stuff. So do you want to have to deal with that?
Yeah.
You're going to end up spending more money if you have to take them to court and all that. It's just not even worth it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man. And it's just energy draining stuff,
It is.
I think I told you my wife works in events, and she had a wedding booked recently, and a couple days prior, the bride phoned and said they'd called off the wedding. And she was in this really awkward position because her and the bride had become friends by this point. But the corporation she works for were like, too bad. And she's like trying to break the news. And I was trying to say to her, like, couldn't she kind of like spin it to the bride that they come and do like a not getting married party or something? Surely if you've got the location and all the things in place, the actual event is down to what you want it to be, I would think. But I don't know. I don't know how it turned out. I should actually ask. I'll see you later.
An early divorce party.
Yeah, right. Like divorce parties are a big thing now. So why not?
Yeah.
Andrew, talk to me about some of the aspects that you feel are the hardest when it comes to being in a tribute band, and the same question for when it comes to being a function band. And then when you finish that, talk to me about what you think the hardest parts about being a full-time career musician are.
Okay. The hardest things I would say are just finding open dates, because all the guys that I play with are in other bands as well. So each one is in 4 or 5 bands. So it's like to get one all available is like, it's impossible. I feel so bad for my drummer, Sergio, because he's not in but one band. This is his main thing. And it's like everybody else is like, no, dude, I'm booked. And then you got one guy going, I'm open. And the other guy, I'm open too. And then the other one's like, I'm booked. And then Sergio's like, I'm open. And like, it's happened a lot of times, and it's frustrating just trying to get a date that we can all set on these, because we wanted to do like a little small touring kind of thing, because we could do this and go across the country. But unfortunately, we all have other things and it's just not possible. So that's probably the hardest thing with this tribute thing, getting the date, hey, we're all available on this date.
And what about from a musical aspect? Do you guys ever, I don't want to use the word argument, but how do you agree on the bands? Like, is there ever a situation where somebody's like, dude, I don't want to play this band, or I hate this song, or I don't want to play that song? It's like, again, I know who you're working with. I'm sure everybody's professional to a point, but these things have to come up, because I know in regular everyday cover bands, singer doesn't want to sing this song, guitarist doesn't want to play that song, drummer never gets their suggestion in the bag, etc., etc., etc.
Well, I think we have to like work with our singer, right? The things that he can sing the best, and that's why we went with the Journey first, because Derek, he sounds really good singing the Steve Perry stuff. and Phase 5, and we would always cover a lot of Journey, and we were just like, man, just sounds so good. Why don't we do a Journey tribute band? So
Yeah.
we played towards what he does the best.
That's a great way to look at it.
And then the Def Leppard and the Foreigner, he kind of has that voice too. Like Derek is the chameleon that we're talking about. Like we're all chameleons, but your singer needs to be a chameleon.
Yeah.
Because to emulate all these singers, Derek just knows how to do it, man. I've heard him sound like Dio and like Bruce Dickinson, and like, man, he's just got it. He knows how to change his voice to emulate these guys, and that's a gift in itself.
Oh, totally. Totally.
But a lot of things that we argue about is what songs we're going to do, because you want to stick with the popular stuff. You don't want to have too many B cuts because people ain't going to know what songs those are, So we kind of we look at what Journey and all these bands are doing now at their tours and what songs on their list, the ones that they're picking, and then we'll throw in a few that we like that we can all agree on, So
something that I just remembered as you were mentioning Journey, and I'll come back to the thing I want to conclude on with that topic though, is just to go back to what we were talking about previously with a lot of people having certain stigmas about cover musicians or tribute musicians. You've had guys in your bands that have gone on to play with some of these big bands. So talk to me about that. I mean, we don't necessarily have to go into every detail of who's who and et cetera, but the bottom line is, for listeners out there, there've been musicians in these tributes or function bands that Andrew has worked with that have gone on to play with bands like Journey and tour with them and so on and so on. So if you are one of these people thinking, oh, I don't want to play covers because covers suck, man. Like that, some of these guys are getting monstrous gigs out of these situations. So if you wouldn't mind, just embellish on that for a couple minutes.
Right. I got to say, man, you never know who's watching, right? So it's almost like high school football, like there's guys out there scouting these kids, from a young age to see, hey, that guy's going to be some, keep an eye on this guy, he makes it to college and they're still scouting this guy. But when you're really good, they call you Cracker Jack. No, just kidding. When you're really good, they're watching. So I was actually fortunate enough to work with a guy that was in Journey. He was asked to be in Journey, playing keyboards and singing. So, Travis Thibodeau.
Yeah.
He went to Journey, and it was like I was playing with the guy at a wedding, and he's over there just learning his Journey stuff on the side on our break,
That's crazy, hey?
It's just amazing. I'm like, man, it just gives you hope that there is a chance that one day you could be in one of these big bands. I mean, look at Tommy Thayer.
Yeah.
He was in his tribute band, and now he's in Kiss. Like, you just never know, man, because all these real artists are getting older now, and they're going to pass the torch on to somebody, see, or you.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, it does happen. My buddy Jaron, who's been on the podcast maybe 30 episodes ago, he got the call to play with Lynch Mob. And he was learning the songs in restrooms and in a van on tour, trying to get ready for Lynch Mob. And he's just one of many who've got those stories. Yeah, they are winning the lottery type stories, but they exist. And a couple
to get that, you put your homework in and you just knock it out, man, because it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, dude. And can you imagine you are the guy who just doesn't give a shit and you get that call and you're just not prepared? That's going to suck, man.
Get the golden ticket from Willy Wonka and you just go in there.
Heartbreaking. I recently saw a video. I don't know if you know who Tommy Igo is. He's a drummer originally from New York, I believe. I think he's in Vegas now. Really cool drummer. Big into education, and he's worked with a lot of drummers who are who's kind of drummers. And he puts up some really interesting stuff on social media. And he put up a thing a couple of weeks back of Bruno Mars singing in his wedding band, pre the Bruno Mars megastar that Bruno Mars became. And I mean, Bruno's got it, man. I was watching this video and it's like, man, he had it then, he's got it now. So it's like, you never know, man. You never know.
He's the modern day Morris Day and the modern day Prince. He's got it, man. That guy, he's just got it. He knows what to put in songs that just have that sound, the production, the dance. I mean, he knows what to do.
Yeah, he's got it, man. Whatever that factor is, he's got it. So I
Right.
did cut you a little bit short on the previous one. What do you feel are some of the hardest aspects about being a career musician?
Huh. I mean, just trying to deal with the society and the way that things are going these days, it's like and the more that things come down on people financially, it's harder for people to be able to afford things. And, bars don't want to pay you and they don't want to. I mean, it's just, I guess the economy has a lot to do with things that are making it hard for you, you know? So
If there was one thing you could change about the music scene to potentially help make it better, what would that one thing be?
I wish that these nice clubs and things didn't shut down because I wish they had. I mean, people always, they say, why did your club shut down? Because there's been a few that actually opened up their nice venues and then they end up shutting down because no one goes to them and supports them. You got to have support in order for it to stay open, you know? So that would probably be my thing, nicer venues with, theater style atmosphere with, where everything looks professional and nice and stuff like that. You got to keep those things open, man. You got to support them all. Because if you don't, shut down.
That's true. Sad. If you had to go back in time and restart your musical career, but you can do it with all of your current know-how, what would you do differently?
Oh, geez. Huh. I don't know. I don't know. That's a toughie. I could go back in time with what I know now. What would I do differently?
Yeah.
Shoot. I don't have a clue. I don't know, man. That's one question that I just can't figure out.
Well, maybe that's good because that kind of comes across almost as if
I mean, maybe I'll learn something else. I don't know. I'm gonna learn another.
in terms of skill for vocation or in terms of something for music.
Man, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you on that one. That's crazy.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For artists who are trying to be original artists, now I know that this isn't necessarily your main thing, but for artists who are trying to be original artists in a world that is super hard to um, get noticed, for lack of a better phrase, what advice or what elements of a music career do you think they should be focusing on to try and rise to the top?
They need to get in a cover band, and they can still do their original stuff on the side. You can make money.
It amazes me how many musicians don't do that. Listen, being in an original band costs money, unless, of course, that band has already made it. That costs money to run anyway. I mean, come on, we saw it with that Chicago thing recently. You know that costs money to operate. So sure, they might be generating lots of money, but that's still a business, costs money to operate,
If you have a passion for music, man, don't shut off the potential in anything. If you got to play cover tunes to survive, then do it. Like, don't just cut it off and say, I'm not playing cover tunes.
Yeah.
That's dumb. Like, why? If you love music, go play music no matter what it is.
Yeah. Dude, I've always thought that. It's like, it's funny because it's kind of like, listen, obviously there's some songs that you don't want to play sometimes. Sometimes you've played certain songs 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times, and you're like, I couldn't care less about this song anymore. But it's interesting to me that, like, I personally know a lot of musicians who won't go play covers, each to their own. If you don't want to play covers, that's cool. But they will go and get a job working something that they don't want to do that's more grueling in terms of the hours that get taken up in their day, to the point that eventually, after doing these jobs for weeks, months, they're so tired that when they get in home, they don't have the energy to pick up their instrument. So I get it. I want to do this because that's going to finance that, and I only want people to know me in this original realm. Cool. But likewise, I know cover musicians who are still getting to practice their instrument every day and still take that money and put it into their original project. I mean, there's no guarantee your original project works, right? I mean, like, there's just no guarantee. It's like winning the lottery, but it's like, it's interesting how some guys think. And again, each to their own. My way is not right. Their way is not wrong, but it does blow my mind.
And I do know some original artists that have started playing in tributes and covers around here, that are pretty big.
Yeah.
And they're in cover bands now. So it's like they're seeing the numbers. that these bands are bringing in, and they're like, well, I want a piece of that too, you know? And then it comes into the fact of which band, like you said earlier, like who decides on which bands you're tributing and stuff. I didn't answer that one, but we try to pick the iconic ones, you know, the ones that are like selling out arenas and you know, that's the ones we're going after. We're not going after the ones that I don't know. We can't go too hard like heavy rock because then you're cutting yourself off. I mean, not if I always said if girls bring out the girls, the guys will follow. So you'll get both. You get girls and the guys. So
Gotcha.
that's right. Yes. It's a formula. If you bring the girls, then the guys are gonna be there, you
Yeah.
know? They all like Journey and Bon Jovi and Def Leppard. I mean, it appeals to the masses, you know?
Side note, did you see this recent situation that's happening with Desmond Child and Bon Jovi with Living on a Prayer?
I didn't.
Yeah, okay. We don't have to get into that. I just thought of it as you were talking. Okay, second last question. This one's not music related. I just figured we've got the chance to kind of shove it in there, so we should. Andrew and his partner have a killer restaurant called the Rock and Roll Kitchen in Metairie. It's on Veterans Boulevard. I've eaten there once. I keep saying I'm going to go back. I'm just so busy. I haven't been back. I'm sorry. I will be back. The food's incredible. It's kind of like I'm not going to describe the food, but it's like, imagine like Hard Rock Cafe meets American Diner. Would that be a good description? I don't know. But anyway, talk to me a little bit about the inspiration behind the restaurant. How's the restaurant going? And give it a quick plug before we get to your last musical question.
Well, my girlfriend and I, we also have another passion, which is food, right? And cooking. So, I mean, our families both come from a long line of cooks and stuff. You know, as I was growing up, my mom was cooking every day. You know, her mom was cooking every day. So, you know, the love of food and cooking and just going out to eat, we just kind of like, hey, let's try to do this ourselves. And we started doing this catering out of her house after Ida. She lost her house and it got rebuilt. And we called that kitchen the Rock and Roll Kitchen. So we were doing some catering and it took off. You know, people were ordering and I was delivering all over the city, all this food. And we're like, man, we have to get a restaurant where people can come to us. So things happened and just an opportunity came where this place came available and we took it and we have the Rock and Roll Kitchen now. So, you know, it's basically home cooked meals and po' boys and hamburgers and, you know, we have good appetizers and desserts and it's got a rock and roll vibe. I mean, I got Kiss pictures all over the wall, got Elvis and, you know, just rock and roll. We got music videos playing all day while you're eating. You get to watch Kiss and Led Zeppelin and everything old school, you know? So better than having good music and good food.
That's actually very true. No, seriously, I wish the restaurant nothing but success, man. It's a great concept. And people are digging it. I mean, like the fact that a customer comes in there the other day and gives you a Gibson Les Paul Ace Frehley signature guitar to hang on the wall, you're doing something right, buddy.
I've had a lot of people giving me stuff. Like the sound man for Journey brought me a Steve Smith drum kit, like a kick drum head.
Amazing.
And I got an autographed Steve Smith. You know, I mean, it's you never know what's gonna happen. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we didn't even get into this stuff, but we are going to be coming to an end soon. But just real quick, without trying to sound like I'm blowing smoke, you've also been involved with other stuff, which I've left out here completely. You were involved with the Bill and Ted movie with Keanu Reeves, showing him how to do some guitar stuff. You've told me that the restaurant's going to be in a movie again next year. It's like, dude, I mean, you're just busy across the board, man. Phase 5 generators, we didn't even really talk about. Phase 5, we didn't talk about. But as I mentioned at the start, we'll put links for all this stuff. But last question, Andrew. What do you think has been either the best piece of advice you've ever received in regards to being a musician, or the best thing you've learned along the way that was something you wish you had known in regards to being a musician that would have made your life a bit easier?
Well, it's hard work. And a lot of people don't think that being a musician is a real job. I've been told that a lot in my life. And it is a real job because it's a lot of hard work, as you have seen, you know, loading into these venues and setting up production and all that. That's not really that easy, you know? So, I mean, you just got to work hard and never get lazy. And I mean, just keep on shoveling, man. And eventually things happen. Good things will happen to people that do good things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what
100%, dude. Is there anything you would like to add before we conclude?
I just want to add that, dude, I'm glad I met you because I swear to God, when I first saw you play, I'll never forget just how good you are. And it's just like, I have to meet this guy. You were like this new guy in town. And I was like, holy cow, this drummer is really good. And I want to go meet him. And I remember you walked out stage and I was like, hey, I'm Andrew. I want to get your number.
Dude, I appreciate that so much, man. I'm glad I met you too. I feel like we are kindred spirits. I mean, it's funny to me. I do a lot of these interviews and I love talking to people, especially about music, so I could really just go on and on and on. I obviously try to keep a time because I know, as we discussed earlier, attention spans, they're shorter than they used to be. And if I go into like 3-hour podcasts, I know that after the first hour, I'm going to have zero listenership. But guys like you are just so easy to talk to. And it's like you barely touch the surface. I don't talk about scales and practice routines and stuff like that in this podcast for a reason, because those exist. But I said it earlier, without blowing smoke, you can't watch a guy like you or even a guy like Greg or some of the guys that you're working with and not be impressed. It's like the work has been done, and I appreciate work ethic. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows that by now. They probably think I'm so high and mighty. I'm not trying to come across like that. Both my parents were self-employed. And from the moment I decided that I wanted to do music, they preached to me that, they're not going to bail me out. And if you do this, you're doing this. And, don't be moaning and stuff when it's not working. So it's like, I don't not work. I don't take days off. Like, I can't. I'm self-employed, as are you. It's like days off don't exist, man. So, but, I also believe that the harder we work now, maybe, and I'm hopeful here, but maybe down the road, you can start to slack off a little bit and be like, you know what, all that hard work we did here is the reason why we reap these rewards versus, being one of these guys who just get bitter as you get older and be like,
you have to give yourself a good 5 minutes to enjoy your stuff.
Exactly.
5 minutes a day.
Yeah. 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes has to be filled with learning a song for somebody.
5 minutes. Go learn that.
That is awesome. All right. Andrew Autin, dude, thank you so much for joining me. I truly, truly appreciate your time. I enjoyed this, man. I know I said it just a couple minutes ago, but I barely touched the surface. Maybe we get you back on at some point. We'll talk about, I don't know, we'll pick one topic and we'll just only talk about that. And we'll make it really boring so that like anyone just thinks we're guitar geeks or something. But no, I'm kidding. Yeah, we'll talk about Kiss. Exactly. Kiss rule, man. Listen, if anyone doesn't understand that by now, they're missing out, They basically invented merchandising. I mean, the Beatles did it to a point, then Kiss blew it out of the water, and now every band does it and people just take it for granted. But bands weren't doing it the way Kiss did it before Kiss did it,
Nope. They were the gods, man. They did it right.
I agree, brother. I agree. Well, thanks for joining me and enjoy the rest of your day, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me, man. It means a lot that you actually took the time out to let me do this, I'm glad, brother.
You too, brother. You too. Peace.
All right, man. See you later.
Alrighty. There we have it. Andrew Autin, everybody. I'd like to publicly thank Andrew for his time. As usual, I want to thank every single one of you for your time. Please share these interviews with your like-minded musician or up-and-coming musician friends. Let me know if you want me to start asking some different questions. A lot of these guests are actually willing to talk about money and how they work their money in these kinds of situations. So if that's something that you'd be interested in hearing about, let me know. I try not to get too personal, but I'm happy to ask. You can follow the Musicians Mentor podcast at musicians-mentor.com. You can find out more about me, Travis Mark, at travismark.com. For anything else, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of those social media networks. Away from that, thank you as usual for your support, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.